When Cenk says that the reason Hamas came to power was because of the occupation, the rank ignorance. Israel withdrew in 2005. There was a United States-sponsored election in 2006 in Gaza that was open and free. The Palestinian Authority, run by Mahmoud Abbas, and Yasser Arafat had just left the scene. They ran against Hamas. There was a power-sharing agreement, and Hamas murdered their fellow Palestinians and threw them off of roofs. They came to power through a democratic election that the United States insisted upon. There is no open-air concentration camp. And what you just said, that Israel killed 12,000 children and they killed them all, Hamas uses them as human shields. They are their bulletproof vest. This is a blood libel. This is rank anti-Semitism that we have suffered for 2,000 years. And Cenk, if you're too afraid to debate me, next time say no, or at least read a Wikipedia page, for God's sake.
So in this one, we got a heated debate between Rabbi Shmuley and Cenk Uygur, and both of these guys are pretty passionate in their beliefs. I expect it to get pretty heated, and I think we're going to enjoy it. So let's get it started.
Later, but I'm joined now by the author of The Israel Warrior and Kosher Sex, Rabbi Shmuley, and the Young Turks host and creator, Cenk Uygur. Well, welcome to both of you.
You know, to my friend Cenk, the last time we were on, I said to him, you withdrew your presidential campaign. I'm sorry that you were outpolled by even, SpongeBob SquarePants, but you went back from your presidential campaign. If you want, you could run as the chief information officer for Hamas because you parrot their lies about Israel's being genocidal. But I will tell you one thing. How is it that people do not care one bit that the leadership of Hamas have stolen the future of the Palestinian people for 18 years, and only when Hamas is destroyed and removed.
All right, Rabbi Shmuley, I think, look, a lot of people will share your concern about what Hamas has done in those 18 years. They will also think that Netanyahu has basically admitted that he was perfectly happy with Hamas running Gaza because it separated the Palestinians from Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. But you haven't, in all that rant you've just unleashed about this, you haven't actually answered my question. And I will make it, personal to you. You're a rabbi. When you see a refugee camp, that is what it is. When you see a refugee camp with 1.5 million people, they've all been sent there and displaced there by Israel, by the bombardment in the north. When you see this, and you see Netanyahu saying, we're going to go in for several weeks, surely you don't think this is a good idea for Israel, that you're going to see the wholesale slaughter of innocent women and children?
It's a fair question. Again, Piers, let me be clear. War is horrible. War is terrible. Israel has said that they will move those 1.5 million civilians, but war is always terrible. Has Netanyahu made mistakes, especially when he allowed Qatar to continue to give Hamas $1 billion a year? Yes, he did make those mistakes. I'm personally friendly with Netanyahu. I was critical of that decision at the time. I remain so. But let's be clear. Without 700,000 Americans dying in the Civil War, which is atrocious, we might have had slavery, God forbid. If we didn't destroy Nazi Germany, there was starvation in Berlin. Innocent, beautiful German children. They weren't Nazis. Those who were conscripted into the Hitler Youth. And by the way, Young Turks is essentially the Hitler Youth. I don't know why Cenk uses that name still. He's going back. They were the ones who perpetrated the Armenian genocide. These German children were not responsible. Japanese children were not responsible. Japanese children were not responsible. But without destroying Hamas, there will be war for the next 100 years.
And let me just say that you've gone once again very ad hominem with the other guest when he hadn't on you.
I'm not going ad hominem. You cannot use a genocidal name for your podcast.
Let me go to Cenk.
I'm sorry.
Cenk, your response.
Yeah, look, Piers, I wasn't supposed to come on with this guy. I was supposed to come on with a different guest. I'm never coming on with him again. He's all he has is ad hominem. So you ask him about 21 to 25,000 women and children.
Are you really that afraid of me that every time you use a debate, you say you're not going to come on?
Let him speak, please.
Come on, Cenk.
Let him speak.
Cenk, you ran for president.
Let him speak,
you won't
please,
even debate
Rabbi
people.
Shmuley.
Come on, you can't run.
Rabbi, let him speak. Cenk.
Okay, Rabbi Shmuley says he wants to murder more women and children and then calls us genocidal because we're trying to protect women and children both in Israel and in Palestine. You see me sticking up for Israel when Hamas attacks. You see me criticizing Hamas, saying they're terrible, I don't agree with them. You see me trying to protect innocent lives on both sides. Then this guy comes on. He says, kill more Palestinians. We killed, what, 700,000, he said, in another war. So are you going to go to 700,000 in Gaza?
The
Rabbi
Civil War,
Shmuley.
for God's sake. I wish you knew a little bit of American.
Rabbi
you don't know any American
Shmuley,
history.
who says murder,
Read
murder, murder,
Wikipedia,
murder,
for
murder.
God's
That's
sake.
all this rabbi.
See, this is it.
Hey, okay, I've got to say
Genocidal,
one
Jews
more
are
thing.
murderers, Jews are killers.
No, shut up.
Piers, can I ask this man one question? The man who ran for president.
No, you can't ask anything.
with
All you
no
ever do is lie.
Shut up and everything. Listen, stop your ad hominems. I want to ask one question, Piers, of
my
Cenk Uygur.
ad hominems.
If you care about the Palestinians,
Get up.
I have one question. Why don't you call, Cenk, for the unconditional surrender of Hamas today, the release of the hostages, and the war will be over? I am challenging you now to call for the
I don't care about any of
unconditional
your
surrender
stupid
of
challenges,
Hamas.
and I'm not going to answer any of your stupid questions.
Will you do so or not?
No, listen.
So why is that such a hard question for Cenk to answer right there? If you're on the side of the innocent people on both sides of this, then you understand that it's Hamas that uses the innocent people of Palestine as body shields. They set up bases in schools and hospitals and stuff like that. And if you're really pro the innocent people, then you would understand that Hamas is the problem. And you got to remember this one thing. Everything that's going over there right now is a direct result of Hamas attacking Israel on October 7th, taking hostages and killing innocent Israelis in the process. So if Israel determines that their best way of national defense, national security is to remove Hamas, then that's what Israel should do. Hamas is obviously a terrorist organization. Cenk should very easily be able to condemn Hamas and say that Hamas is a bad thing. But I'm not going to condemn Israel for their response to Hamas's attack, because the sooner Hamas is out of the way, the aid that my tax dollars are providing for the Palestinian people can actually get to the innocent Palestinian people, right? So let's get back to this debate. I have a feeling that it's just starting to get good.
No, I'm not entertaining this.
Piers,
fool
why
of
won't
a
he
man.
answer the question?
Okay,
Piers,
he
why
won't
won't he answer the
shut
question?
up. No, there's no talking to this guy.
Let me
Piers, there's no
Cenk,
talking to
let me
this
ask
guy.
Cenk. I want to play you a clip, Cenk, of Netanyahu at the weekend. This is what he said.
Okay, can I just, before you do, Piers?
Yeah.
Look, I hope that everybody in the audience understands that this guy isn't helping Israel at all. He's putting a very, very ugly face to Israel, and I hope that you don't make the mistake out in the audience of thinking that everyone in Israel,
I'm going to come.
or
I'm
God
gonna,
forbid, hold on, let me finish.
Yeah.
Or that anyone else that is Jewish thinks anything like your Rabbi Shmuley does. My Jewish friends are horrified by the death
do me a favor,
toll.
Cenk.
Rabbi
Cenk, you
doesn't
have
care.
said that
The
Jews are
rabbi
murderers,
doesn't care at
killers.
all. He's the
Come
most
on,
immoral man I have ever met in my
don't speak
life.
over each other.
You
All right.
cannot be.
Okay,
wait a second.
go
Wait
ahead,
a
ask
second.
me.
I
No,
asked him a
shut
simple.
up.
Piers, I asked a simple
And
question.
let Piers ask the question.
I would like to play what Netanyahu said and ask Cenk for his reaction. Here we are from Fox News.
When people tell us don't go into Rafah, that's like telling the Allies, listen, don't go into Berlin, leave a quarter of the Nazi army intact. You know, that's ridiculous. You know, if we leave a quarter of the Hamas fighting terrorist battalions in place, they'll regroup, reconquer Gaza, and in fact, perpetrate once again what they vowed to do, which is to repeat the October 7th massacre over and over and over again.
Cenk, your reaction to that?
Yeah, so this guy has been justifying the slaughter of Palestinians from day one. You have to understand something. In order for Israel to get peace, which should be the goal of its leaders and its citizens, and it is certainly of its citizens, but I don't know, definitely not its leaders at this point in time. You have to get the peace as you did with Egypt. With Egypt, there are no more bombs. You've had peace for over 40 years, and all of the doubters and all the right-wingers and all the warmongers told you, oh, Egypt will never listen. Egypt will keep trying to kill you. Egypt's going to try to kill all the Jews. But they didn't. The warmongers were lying to you, just like they're lying to you today. And why are they doing that? They're doing it because they want to remain in power. Netanyahu knows the minute that this war, and by the way, it's not just Netanyahu, it's also the leaders of Hamas. They should have taken a truce, a ceasefire earlier. They held it up on absurd grounds of not releasing the names of the hostages. So the leaders on both sides profit from this war. But the citizens of Israel are the only people who can change it. The way you get to peace is doing a peace deal. This endless war and the endless occupation is going to prevent you from having the safe haven for Jews that you have desired and deserved all of these years. For God's sake, turn around, not just for the Palestinians, but for the Israelis, so you could finally get the peace. If you do not free the Palestinians, look, I know there's PTSD from the Holocaust.
Piers,
and
I
right
must be allowed to respond.
Yeah,
acting
you
in a
can respond in a
blind
moment, yeah.
rage.
Finish.
Israel is
Okay, Piers,
acting in a blind
Piers,
rage at
Piers.
this point. But the Palestinians are not
Piers,
Nazis.
Piers.
They're the Jews. They're the same as the Jews,
Piers,
victimized, horribly victimized.
Piers.
Wake
Okay.
up,
I
Israel.
must
Wake
respond,
up.
please.
Don't do the same thing that was done to you.
Piers, I must respond. I must respond. These emotional tirades of Cenk Uygur, who sadly, and I'm not saying this to be ad hominem, when we were last on, I begged him, just read a Wikipedia
Well, his name
page.
is Cenk Uygur, for starters.
Camp David,
Well, Piers, you're actually wrong. His name is Cenk. And just in case you guys are wondering, I call him Cenk on purpose because his actual name sounds a little bit too much like a racial slur. And so I just want to avoid it completely, okay? So Cenk it is from now on and forever.
Camp David Accords of 1979, which led to the peace with Egypt, was all predicated on a catastrophic military defeat by the Egyptians launched by Anwar Sadat on the 6th of October 1973, Yom Kippur War, where Sadat thought he'd be victorious, and in the end, his Third Army was completely encircled. They were going to be destroyed, and then Sadat came to the conclusion, definitively, that the only way to proceed is through peace because militarism was destroyed. That's what led to peace. The same was true of World War II with Nazism. The same was true with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Terrible, terrible events that with Japanese imperialism. There will be no peace until Hamas is destroyed militarily, and my Palestinian brothers and sisters, who are not genocidal, but Hamas is, Hamas are Nazis with GoPros. When militarism is destroyed completely, then the Palestinians
How many
will
people?
come
How many?
with a
All right.
real peace offer, knowing that arms do not work.
Okay, but one question.
Cenk Uygur,
No,
Cenk
one
Uygur
question.
just said she never
Look,
heard of
his
the
name is
Civil War.
Cenk
The
Uygur,
Civil
for
War-
starters. All right, so get his name right. My point to you, Rabbi Shmuley, is this: how many more?
By the way, I apologize for that. I'm sorry.
How
Trey.
many more innocent people are you prepared to watch the IDF kill in Rafah in the next few weeks to avenge what happened on October the 7th? Because it is going to be...
Not one. I don't want one innocent
But there are going to be
Palestinian with God's
thousands
child
more
as much
killed.
as a Jewish child. But they will, if Hamas continues in power, the Palestinians will continue to be brutalized. LGBTQ Palestinians will be castrated. Young Palestinian teenagers will be murdered by their brothers or their cousins for just having a boyfriend at 16. They will die at Hamas's hand for the next 100 years if Israel does
Why
not
would you
destroy
expect?
them.
Okay,
Just
let me
like
ask you.
Assad,
Let
just
me
like
ask you.
Assad killed
Let me ask
600,000
you.
Arabs.
Why would you expect people in Gaza, after all this, not to want to exact bloody revenge for what is going on in their country?
Before he answers, I want to actually answer this. I expect the people of Gaza to rejoice in their newfound freedom. Unless they're actually pro-Hamas themselves. Maybe their brothers and sisters or cousins that they've been harboring in their home and they side with Hamas. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, the level of innocence might be a little bit clouded here. So the truly innocent people will rejoice when Hamas is decimated, in my opinion.
Because the IDF has so far, you have
we-
spent months and months and months flatlining Gaza, and you're now about to attack a refugee camp with 1.5 million people in it. Why would you think that doing that is not actually going to present to Israel going forward a worse security threat? Because most independent analysts think it is.
Because my Palestinian brothers and sisters are as human as I, and they have the same ambitions for their children, for their future. They know that Hamas was elected to a 4-year term. They're in their 19th year term. They were supposed to share power with the Palestinian Authority. They took the Palestinian Authority officials, threw them off of rooftops and murdered them, and then took $150 billion in international aid and bought private jets for their leaders. They understand that ultimately, that's why even when you see the worst news outlets interviewing Palestinians, they say they're suffering, and they are, because of Hamas. But notice they almost never never criticize Israel because they know Hamas brought this war upon them. And I challenge Cenk one more time if he wants to respond, since he says he'll never debate me again, and I wouldn't if he was either, because he doesn't know basic information. Cenk, why do you not call right now for Hamas to surrender unconditionally? They provoked this war October 7th and release the hostages.
All right, well, let me, okay.
Will you call for that now
I think,
or not?
you know what? It's a legitimate question. Cenk, your response to that question.
Okay, yeah, but let's just be clear. I'm never going to go on with him again, not because he is a good debater. It's because he's a horrible debater. It's like talking to a ad hominem machine, just one insult after another, not attached to any reality or facts. Okay, now on Hamas. Guys, how many times do I have to say, I don't like Hamas. I don't want Hamas to win. I don't want Hamas to be in power. I want him to surrender. I want him to give all the hostages. That's so easy.
Well, that's a clear answer.
Hold on. That's a super clear answer. And do you know what created Hamas? The occupation. Because when you oppress people and you put them in an open-air prison and you take away all their rights and you make them subjugated to another set of people, then radicalism and extremism rises up. What did you think was going to rise up? Gandhi? Did you think that moderates were going to rise up when you put 5 million people in an open-air prison, bomb them whenever you like, and starve them whenever you like? Of course they're going to go to extremists who say revenge. And then
Piers,
this constant
Hamas
excuse
was
that,
democratically elected in 2006.
Can you just let me answer a
Cenk
question?
doesn't know basic facts. They were democratically elected when Israel left
Piers,
Gaza.
what am I going to do with this guy?
The problem with Cenk is Cenk
What am I gonna do with this
Wikipedia.
guy?
Rabbi Shmuley,
Next time you debate me,
Rabbi Shmuley, let Cenk finish the point he was making, then you can respond.
Yeah, look, so this constant excuse that the Israeli right wing has of Hamas made me do it. Oh, if it wasn't for Hamas, I wouldn't have to kill Palestinian children. Over 12,000 children now killed by Israel. By Israel, not Hamas. Over 21 to 25,000 women and children killed by Israel, not Hamas. And then they go, well, Hamas made us murder your children, made us murder your women. No, they didn't. You did that. You chose to do that. IDF has now killed 25 to 30 times the number of innocent people that Hamas did. So if you think that's terrorism, what Hamas did, and I do, and I've said it now clearly 200 times, then what Israel and IDF has done is 25 times the terrorism that Hamas has done. And that's a stone cold fact. Go ahead and make any excuses, any ad hominems you like, because every time you talk, Rabbi Shmuley, you make Israel look worse, not better. Go ahead.
Rabbi Shmuley, I would say that on
Piers,
that...
may I respond? Piers, may I respond?
Yes, you can. I'm going to make one point, which is...
Okay, thank you.
When you
Yes, please.
appeared last time, we did get a lot of people on the Israeli side, Jewish people, who said you don't reflect their opinions about this. I mean, are you aware that you're a polarizing figure amongst your own community?
Oh, I love the fact that we Jews are a democratic society, democratic community, and democratic Israel. I love it. I love when I get criticism. I learn more from my critics than I do from the people that like me. It's people like Cenk who support people like Erdogan in Turkey, who's a tyrant, who squashes all dissent, and there isn't one Arab democracy. I invite criticism. Piers, let's just be clear. My problem with Cenk is not personal. Cenk, if I said anything personal, please overlook my shortcomings. I will tell you something. My problem with you, Cenk, is that, respectfully, you don't know any history whatsoever. You didn't hear the Civil War. I've never debated an American who didn't know what the Civil that war 700.
Of course, I know what the Civil War is. That's an absurd thing to say.
Wait a moment. It's my turn. It's my turn.
He called Senator Schumer anti-Semitic earlier, by the way. Let's note that.
When Cenk says that the reason Hamas came to power was because of the occupation, the rank ignorance. Israel withdrew in 2005. There was a United States-sponsored election in 2006 in Gaza that was open and free. The Palestinian Authority, run by Mahmoud Abbas, and Yasser Arafat had just left the scene. They ran against Hamas. There was a power-sharing agreement, and Hamas murdered their fellow Palestinians and threw them off of roofs. They came to power through a democratic election that the United States insisted upon. There is no open-air concentration camp. And what you just said, that Israel killed 12,000 children and they killed them all, Hamas uses them as human shields. They are their bulletproof vests. This is a blood libel. This is rank anti-Semitism that we have suffered for 2,000 years. And Cenk, if you're too afraid to debate me, next time say no, or at least read a Wikipedia page, for God's sake.
Cenk, what I would say, just on that point about human shields, the Israeli military said today it's taken control of the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City. Troops came under fire from hospital buildings, 80 people detained, others killed, including Hamas terrorists. There seems little doubt that Hamas has used places like hospitals as a kind of collective human shield, does it?
No. Okay, that's absurd. So let me explain why. So again, this guy, he claims he knows history, has a perverted, only one-side version of history. Earlier, he called Senator Schumer anti-Semitic. That's the most outrageous, absurd thing I've ever heard from the most senior Jewish leader in America.
I never said any such thing. That's invention.
Okay, you did. You could re-roll the tape.
Okay. Don't invent.
Okay.
Don't invent.
Okay,
I said that he was serving as Biden's court Jew. I never said he was an anti-Semite.
And
Don't put words in my mouth.
Shmuley's defense of every atrocity and war crime of Israel is anti-Semite. And you ruined it, Shmuley, because there are real anti-Semites out there, especially now, including Candace Owens, who attacked you unfairly, and I actually defended you. Okay? But when you use it to justify the war crimes of a government, you do more damage than you help. So please stop. Okay? And that's why your own community is telling you, please stop. So you pretend like I'm some giant fan of the Turkish government or other governments, etc. But as a Turk, it's so easy for me to criticize the Turkish government.
Do you support Erdogan?
Because it has nothing to do with being Turkish.
Democracy.
So, okay,
will you condemn what Erdogan has done to the country of your birth?
So that was pretty interesting. I don't necessarily agree with either one of these guys. I just take the common sense approach that if Hamas never existed or wasn't in existence, then Israel wouldn't be forced to be at war with him, right? And all of these innocent people wouldn't be victims of war. They'd have their lives and they would be free to do whatever they want to do within their own country, I assume, if the laws allowed it, right? I don't believe that any of these countries are as great as America with our laws because simply we have a First and Second Amendment. I find it funny that Cenk's go-to is to basically yell, "Shut up," over and over and louder until the other person actually shuts up. And admittedly, I don't know much about this rabbi guy at all, but nevertheless, I was entertained for a little bit and I hope you guys were too. And don't forget to check out my live show on Saturdays at 8 p.m. This week will be episode 3 of the Jar Openers podcast. And also, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel on your way out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.